Where is God? Just where he says he is in his living word, the Bible. And we've been learning from the books of Daniel and Revelation and other scriptures that God will be involved in world history right up through the end. This is Revelation Lesson 12, covering Revelation chapter 13. And in this lesson, I will be adding some explanatory comments, including some other scripture passages, and showing you some drawings that will help you understand and envision the big picture of world history since the fall right up through the end. Revelation 13, 1 through 18. Then I, John, stood on the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast. This is a prophetic vision of the historical kingdoms under Satan. That was what the beast represented. That beast was rising up out of the sea. Now in prophetic scriptures, the seas represent multitudes of people. That beast having 7 heads, this referred to the 7 Gentile kingdoms that have ruled the world and have oppressed Israel from early days. Now, Daniel saw only 4 of those kingdoms from his day forward to the end. John saw all 7 of them going back to the beginning with the first one, Egypt. So the 7 kingdoms were Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, Rome, and the end times form of that kingdom under 10 kings who will rule under Antichrist. John saw something like this. A beast with 7 heads. This one is not totally accurate because it shows horns on the different heads, but that's not what Daniel saw or John saw. And in fact, if you'll remember this ugly guy, this represented the kingdom of Rome and the end days form of the kingdom of Rome, and on that head only were the 10 horns. So the 10 horns were only on the 7th of those kingdoms that John saw in that vision. And that beast had 10 horns, the 10 last days kings that I just showed you. Up on those horns were 10 crowns. They were kings, and they will be. This is talking about last days kingdoms under 10 kings, which will come under the Antichrist. He will rise up and destroy 3 of those kings, the horns, and the rest will submit to him. We saw that in previous lessons, and we may run across that again. Upon those horns were 10 crowns representing dominion, and upon his heads, each kingdom, a blasphemous name was written. So each of those kingdoms blasphemed God. Now that beast which I saw was like a leopard. If you'll remember in previous lessons, we saw the representation of that kingdom of Greece. It looked like a leopard with 4 wings on its back, representing the speed with which Alexander, the first king, took over the world kingdom at that time, like a leopard. Daniel 7:6, you'll read about that. So, the kingdom of Antichrist will have certain features of the ancient kingdom of Greece. Why was that leopard? That shows that some of the features and characteristics of those people under that Grecian kingdom way back then, thousands of years ago, will still show up in the end time kingdom because they are just descendants of those people from that Grecian kingdom. His feet were like the feet of a bear. If you'll remember, one of the charts we looked at was showed the kingdom of Persia was like a bear. Medo-Persia, there were 2 kingdoms and they came together, and eventually Persia took over and ruled the world for that time until Greece came along. So that end time kingdom will have some of the features of the Persian kingdom, the Medo-Persian kingdom, in the last days, because they too are descendants of those people from that kingdom. So the kingdom will have certain similarities to the kingdom of the Medes and the Persians. And his mouth was like the mouth of a lion. Now we have another vision here that John saw. This is the way he saw Babylon, as a lion with wings on its back, and showing how fast it took over the world's kingdom in his day, in that day, under Nebuchadnezzar, the lion, Babylon. So the end time kingdom will have some features of the ancient kingdom of Babylon too, the lion. And the dragon, who we found out is the devil, gave to him, the Antichrist, his power, his throne, and great authority. Now remember that. Now, Daniel 8:23 through 24 is a prophecy of that very thing. In the latter time of their kingdom, Daniel said, when transgressors have reached the fullness of rebellion, a king will arise, the Antichrist, who has fierce features and who understands sinister schemes. His power will be mighty, but not by his own power. See, back in Daniel, we find that this prophecy of what we read in Revelation. The dragon gave to the Antichrist his power, throne, and great authority. His power will be mighty, but not by his own power, Daniel said. So he, the Antichrist, will destroy fearfully, and he will prosper and thrive. He will destroy the mighty as well as the holy people, the Jews, in Israel and elsewhere in those days. And I saw one of the beast's heads. Now this is a kingdom, not a human being, as if it had been mortally wounded. Each of these 7 kingdoms had a fallen angel ruler over them. You remember the ruler of the prince of Persia that Gabriel talked about to Daniel. And then when he said, whenever I defeat him, the prince of Greece will come. So these are fallen angelic beings that have ruled over each of these kingdoms. And when one kingdom falls, another kingdom takes over and is ruled by a different fallen angel. So one of the beast's heads, this is talking about the kingdom, not a human being, as if it had been mortally wounded. And this will be that angelic ruler of Greece, which has long ago replaced by the angelic ruler of Rome. And his deadly wound was healed, which means that angelic being we saw earlier in another chapter of Revelation, he ascended out of the abyss. This is an angelic being, and this was obviously the angel that was over the kingdom of Greece. So the vision is, it looked like the deadly wound was healed. It's not talking about a human being being healed or raised from the dead. It's talking about a kingdom coming back to prominence again in the last days under the angelic being which is over the Grecian kingdom. And all the world marveled and followed the beast. Now sometimes the word beast refers to the Antichrist. Sometimes it refers to his kingdom in the last days. And at times to the angelic ruler of that ancient kingdom, which will come back to rule under Satan in the last days. Revelation 11:7 refers to that angelic being, for it says, when they, the 2 witnesses that we read about, Enoch and Elijah, finished their testimony after 3.5 years in Israel, that beast which ascends out of that bottomless pit will make war against them, will overcome them, and will kill them. Now, this is not the Antichrist, but an angel that has been confined to the abyss until the time of the end. That was the deadly wound which was healed. Remember that it was one of the heads of the beast which John saw, the head being a kingdom of the past and its angelic ruler. And they, the deceived multitudes, worshipped the dragon, Satan, Revelation 22. An angel had took hold of the dragon, that serpent of old, who is the devil and Satan, so we know who the dragon is. And he bound him for 1,000 years in the abyss, the bottomless pit, where that angelic ruler of the ancient Grecian kingdom had been confined from ancient times. And he will be released at the end time to rule the earth in the final days under Satan, who gave authority to the beast, and they worshiped the beast as well, stating, who is like the beast, who is able to make war with him. And the Antichrist was granted a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies. We showed a drawing of this, the beast with the 7 horns, and one of the horns talking about Antichrist, referring to the Antichrist, had a mouth speaking great things and eyes like a man. This is talking about the Antichrist. He was granted a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies. Daniel 7, 8, 20, and 11:36 tell about that. Daniel 7, 8. I was considering those horns, and there was another horn, a little one, coming up among them, before whom 3 of those first horns were plucked up by the roots. And in the horn were eyes like the eyes of a human, and a mouth speaking pompous words. Now Daniel 7:20. The 10 horns which were on its head, and the other little horn which came up, before which 3 horns fell, namely that horn which had eyes like a man, and a mouth which spoke pompous words. This all refers to the Antichrist. Daniel 11:36. Then the king, the Antichrist, will do according to his own will. He will exalt and magnify himself above every god, and he will speak blasphemies against the God of gods, and will prosper till the wrath of God has been accomplished, for what has been determined by God will be done. So these are all prophecies of that same event we read about in Revelation. And he, the Antichrist, is given authority by the devil, not by God, to continue for 42 months, or 3½ years. And then the Antichrist opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle and those who dwell in heaven. And it was granted to him to make war with the saints and to overcome them. And authority was given to him over every tribe, tongue, and nation, and all those who dwell on the earth, whose names have not been written in the book of life of the Lamb, slain from the foundation of the world, will worship him, the Antichrist, and through him will worship the devil. That's what the devil is after, being worshipped. So if anybody has an ear to hear, let him hear. He who leads into captivity will go into captivity, and he who kills with the sword must be killed with the sword. So here is the patience and the faith of the saints. Then I saw another beast coming up out of the earth, one more symbol of multitudes of people. This is the false prophet. And he had 2 horns like a lamb, and spoke like a dragon. And he exercises all the authority of the first beast, the Antichrist, in his presence, and causes the earth and those who dwell in it to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. Speaking of the angelic ruler, which will again rule over a kingdom in the last days. That is what was meant by that deadly wound being healed. He, this was a man, the false prophet, performs great signs, so that he even makes fire come down out of heaven on the earth in the sight of men. So these are sensational wonders that will certainly impress people, but cannot do any good, like healing sick bodies. And he will deceive those who dwell on the earth by those deceptive signs which he will be granted to do in the sight of the beast, telling those who dwell upon this planet to make an image to the beast who was wounded by the sword and yet lived. And he was granted power to give breath to the image of the beast, so that the image of the beast should both speak and cause as many as would not worship the image of the beast to be killed. Now this is possibly a robot or a hologram or something. The devil can't create anything and make anything alive. It's all deception. And he causes everybody, both small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark upon their right hand or on their foreheads, so that no one may buy or sell except those who have the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. And here is godly wisdom. Let him who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a limited human being, 666, which is short of perfection. The number 7 or 777 would represent perfection. Man is imperfect, comes short of the glory of God. So where is God? God has manifested himself in nature throughout the Bible, Old and New Testaments. And in the last days he will manifest himself in the judgments of the wicked, then in the millennium with a rod of iron, and then in the renovation of the earth.